We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. This week's episode is sponsored by CityVest. CityVest has quickly become the most popular and best way for doctors to invest in top-performing real estate private equity funds that are usually reserved for institutional investors. This unique access to investing in these institutional funds is available for the first time ever through CityVest's easy and secure online investment platform. CityVest does the hard work of conducting due diligence and vetting the investments. They even get a third-party due diligence report that is posted on their website. As a result of aggregating a several $million investment amount into their access funds, CityVest gains access to investing in the institutional investment and is able to negotiate better investment terms such as a 12% preferred return. You can check them out at cityvest.com or go to the link in the show notes below. Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 different types of freedom: financial, time, emotional, and location freedom. And my mission is to spread financial empowerment information so that earlier career physicians as well as high-income professionals can get a head start in their financial freedom journey. So in that light, I like highlighting physicians that are doing really extraordinary things. And so today I bring on Dr. Kelly Casperson, and she's a urologist based out of Washington, and she's going to talk to us all about her work. And she's actually got a new book titled "You Are Not Broken" and "Stop Shooting All Over Your Sex Life." So Kelly, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're just talking the impromptu types of Zoom meetings, and podcast recordings are some of the best. And I think, and then I saw one of the posts and reach out to you, and I'm glad you could come onto the show.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, your background, and we'll get into the discussion.
Yeah, well, I think I was just like an average, normal doctor. I was in private practice, maybe not, because I built my building and my surgery center, and I'm still in private practice, which is less dying than we think it is. But so I'm a private practice urologist, and about 3 years ago, I basically had a life-changing patient who changed my view and how we think about female sexuality. As you know, I'm a urologist. We kind of are the domain of male sexuality, and it kind of like I had a lightning bolt strike me, and I was like, who's taking care of the people who are sleeping with the people that we're giving all the Viagra to? And it kind of like went down a pathway of education for me and realizing really nobody's taking care of those people. Nobody's the domain of female sexual function. And for better or for worse, women are really hungry for knowledge. They're interested about their bodies. Their male partners are too. And so I just learned more and more and more. And I loved listening to podcasts a lot. And I had this voice in my head, and the voice was like, you got to talk, because, you know, seeing patients in clinic, you're not going to change the world. Like, I remember being in med school and somebody being like, if you want to help one person, be a doctor. If you want to help a lot of people, get your master's in public health. Like, I remember that, like some professor had told us that. And I think that was true then. Right. And now it's like, if you want to help a lot of people, you get a podcast, you write a book. Like, you don't have to go get your master's in public health anymore. That's the news.
Yeah. Everything is so much faster and easier. You know, you don't have to, toil through, you can use technology, social media. So, it's quite interesting. And, in this day and age of empowerment, for everybody, women, minorities, everybody. So, that way everybody has a voice and everybody has a seat at the table. So, it's amazing, what you're doing and how you concentrate on a niche that, has a specific need and you focus on that. So
yeah, and it grows and changes because your audience will tell you what they want, if you want to listen to them. So I really started out female sexual function, and people kept, and that's still my niche, that's what the book's on, but people kept coming back and being like, what about hormones? What about menopause? I'm getting no answers. What's going on with menopause? And it just kept coming back and back. And so I was like, man, I need to know about that. So I got menopause certified. I'm one of the only few urologists who are, because it's 51% of our population, talking about like, this isn't actually a minority. This is majority neglect. And so now I'm very passionate about menopause because I see how poorly doctors are educated and how poorly we help, again, 51% of the population. Unless you want to die before age 51, that's fine. You can avoid menopause. But like, it's normal, right? But I didn't go into this thinking I was going to embrace menopause. But like, it's this another big, huge audience that like has this huge need that doctors aren't fulfilling. So it's like, just listen to your people. They'll tell you what else. And if you're interested in it, like there's more ways to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's actually has a lot of resonates, listen to your audience and, serve your customer. But what's interesting is what do you think why is some of the work that you do around women sexuality and female empowerment, why is it so misunderstood in the medical community?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of been blown off as not important, right? Like, why do you need to learn about the clitoris, right? It doesn't serve, like, if you think about the penis, it has 3 functions, actually. It's like urinary, and then it has to reproduce, and then it's pleasure, right? So the penis has 3 jobs. The clitoris has legit 1 job, and it's only pleasure. But if you look at, and they've done studies on this, if you look at the medical textbooks and anatomy, and even going back to Netter and all that stuff, it's literally drawn inaccurately and completely brushed over. So it's almost like it doesn't matter. And you're like, well, look at how our society, we've got Playboy, we've got Viagra, we've got like the literal definition of masculinity is like spontaneous sex drive, right? So it's like, look at how we kind of make loud and proud 50% of the population. And then, well, 90% of them do have females as sexual partners, right? And if you completely ignore them, everybody's suffering. There's so many guys, they're like, how can I make it better? Because they know if they make it better, they'll probably have more of it. But so, I mean, it really does benefit everybody, but it's benign neglect. I mean, our medical society, the way we get taught medicine, especially surgery, is very patriarchal, came down from a very masculine, masculine is right, masculine is default. And that's really how the sexuality is taught as well. Everything a woman has, if you think about like her desire, she has too much desire or she has too little desire. She's always compared to the masculine, standard. So there's a lot of that going on. We hope you don't mind this brief interruption from one of our affiliates. Today's affiliate is studentloanadvice.com. StudentLoanAdvice.com is a company powered by the White Coat Investor that specializes in helping professional students such as doctors, dentists, and other healthcare professionals navigate the complex and oftentimes confusing student loan landscape. They offer a consultation as well as services to help you save money when consolidating and paying back your student loans through their different options. You can go to their website, studentloanadvice.com/FFFP. That's again, studentloanadvice.com/FFFP to find out more, get signed up on their email list, or schedule a call with Andrew Paulson. Now back to our show. It's interesting how culture and all of that, and it's quite interesting is how brushed over this field is. So I'm glad individuals such as doctors are branching out and talking about burnout and helping doctors in all these different lights. So so tell us, I know a lot of people are interested. If somebody is interested in learning more, about this field, where would they go and how would they get started? I recommend ISHWISH, which is the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. It was actually started by a urologist, Irwin Goldstein, about 20 years ago. It's this niche conference. It's this niche, medical society. What's so cool about it, it's like, you go to your average, medical conference and everybody's kind of like vying for like position and like those are the academics and those are, And it's like, this is the one, it's so multidisciplinary because you've got family medicine, OB-GYN, urology, psychiatry, sex therapist, physical therapist. It's the most multidisciplinary medical conference I've ever been to. And they truly are like, they're just in it to like help their patients. Like they are legit there to take stuff back to help their patients. And so it's just such a refreshing medical conference to go to. For that reason, I'm like, man, I can't go back to like my boring urology conference. It's just not the same. So it's just a very kind of passion, patient driven society. You can totally start there.
Yeah. And and also from there, I know most of the work that you do now is more in this field, or is it are you still operating and seeing patients? Tell us more
Yeah.
how you incorporate
So
it.
I still am an owner in private practice. I'm still a air quotes, general urologist. Female urologists are 10% of urologists in this country. So you see, I'm mostly probably 80% female urology just by default, because that's who women seek out, right? So I would say that's my specialty, but I still love everything about urology. And I had to I had to figure this out because as passionate as I am about educating in female sexual health, I don't have time in clinic. Like I see a woman and she's got low desire. I'm like, go to my podcast, go to my book, start there. Like I literally can't take the decades of shame and like marital discord and stress in her life and be like, that's all desire, honey. Plus hormones, plus menopause, plus all the other things. And so like to me, I'm like, I don't actually like doing sex med in clinic because I don't have enough time, right?
Yeah.
And I truly don't want to. Like I have the podcast, I've got the book, I created all this stuff so I'm not just repeating it myself in clinic. Because some people love that. They're like, I'll do an hour-long appointment and I just love talking about it. I'm like, I actually hate repeating myself, which is good to know. And so I truly don't do a lot of sex med, or it's sex med delivered in like a 15-minute patient appointment, right? It's like the realities of hashtag day job.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is something you on the side. And what's interesting is, have you seen anything where physicians have difficulty or challenges incorporating it into their clinical practice, or are you starting to see physicians starting to actually delve into this and incorporate it into their clinical practice?
Sex med specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it anyway. I mean, you've got your boutique cash only. I'm going to spend, for instance, if you're going to go see Dr. Erwin Goldstein, who's literally the godfather of this, when you go to his clinic, you've got a physical therapist, you've got a sex therapist, you've got him, like it is like an afternoon, right? So there's like that sort of model. But then, I mean, what we need, I can't have a whole bunch of doctors just decide to do like 1 hour boutique, like there's 330 million people in this country. Sex is a fundamental thing we do with our life. Like I need primary care docs just to like have some bullet points, know how to acknowledge it, get some resources to refer to, because there's too many people. The demand is truly too high. And if doctors are like, I don't see it, it's because they're not listening or they're not asking.
Yeah.
It's like diet and exercise and sleep, right? Sex just goes in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important part of our lives, and, adds meaning and fulfillment. The other thing I'm asking is, physicians are interested, do they have to get additional certifications? Is that part of, is that outside body?
Oh, yeah. So you can become an ISHWISH fellow, basically that, and that's like a step up. That's somebody who's like significantly dedicated time to learning about this. I'd say, go to a couple of ISHWISH courses. It's not, I don't think it's challenging. I'm a urologist. I'm already very, very used to examining the pelvis. I mean, you can. There is one female sexual medicine fellowship in the country, and it trains one physician a year. And that's, again, Erwin Goldstein in San Diego. So like you legit can't just go do a fellowship in this. There's one a year. So a lot of it is, self-taught, start going to the conferences, start reading the book, start listening to my podcast, and, just become more comfortable with it. But I talk to primary care docs all the time, and they're like, because of what I learned from you, I'm able to go back and help so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's transition to your book, because I know that, I love what you're talking about. If you want to influence people, you write a book, or you start a business, scaling up your time and building a platform. Tell us about your book and what it's about, the key takeaways, and how people can find it.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's on Amazon. Today, actually, I'm number one in human sexuality and I'm number one in gender studies.
Yeah, nice.
So now
Congratulations.
now I get to say I'm a number one Amazon bestseller, which is very, 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 very cool.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's just, people consume content in different ways. They don't all listen to podcasts. I love podcasting. That's my social media drug of choice. I don't love writing. To me, writing's very painful and slow, and I hate that you have to edit it, 20 times to make it perfect. But once you, and this, when you start hanging out with physicians who think like this and who are entrepreneurial and who are business minded, you start getting this peer group where writing books just becomes a normal thing. Right. And so I had two friends, it's actually Jimmy Turner and Amy Vertrees, stand out in my mind. And they're like, where's the book? And finally they were like, just write it. And it was enough of it. So you know what I'm saying? Like, you surround yourself with these docs where you're just like, oh, I'm in the pool with them. I guess I got to get a book out. And so it wasn't me driven. But when I think back on it, like I did a 5-year bucket list traveling with my husband. We were in Italy after residency, and it was like, in 1 year I want this, in 5 years I want this, kind of goal setting stuff. And I put on there, write a book. And so I was 5 years late. It took 10 years instead of 5. But hey, it got on Amazon, number one bestseller. So I guess it was worth the wait. I had to wait for the universe to be ready for it.
Yeah. And then what are some of the key takeaways around the book that'll entice people to look into it?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what you were never taught in med school, right? For the doctors who are listening, because we didn't get taught sexuality in med school. We got a disease and pregnancy prevention plan. I joke about that now, but that's really what we say we get sex ed, but it's disease and pregnancy prevention plans. And then you get in this long-term relationship and things get a little bit boring and monotonous and stressful. And now there's kids and nobody gets the adult sex ed of like, how do we keep this going? Right? Like, how do we keep both parties actually interested in maintaining a sexual relationship? And that's where I want to get people at, because in my clinic, they're coming in, I haven't had sex for 3 years. I haven't had sex for 5 years, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I got to move the needle to be like, hey, it's kind of dwindling. How do we keep this going? How do I rethink, our views around what our relationship, which started out as a sexual relationship, how do we keep this going?
Yeah, that's so important, and it keeps your marriage alive, keeps your family intact, and keeps your emotional, physical well-being. So it's very important, and it goes to this taboo culture of shame and guilt, and you're not supposed to talk about these things. It's like, but I'm glad people such as yourself are doing this type of cutting edge, innovative work. So
yeah, I mean, if you just think, and that's why I ended up learning about the brain and the mind and the coaching of it all, is because if you can't uncover like your actual views about sex, like, oh, it's just like extra and it's not actually needed, and it's hard and it's difficult and I don't have time. Like, those are all thoughts that influence our actions and the results in our life, right?
yeah,
And so you can apply that sort of level of coaching to money, to, your job, you can apply it to your sex life. And that's really what I did in this book of like, you can't become a person who prioritizes sex in their life if you have all those thoughts that, aren't serving you.
Yeah, I love that. It's been a fascinating conversation. Again, I've really enjoyed just talking to people on the cutting edge. And for all the listeners, Dr. Casperson's links will be in the show notes. So how can people contact you, get a hold of you? I know you have a podcast people will be really interested in visiting. So how can they do that?
Yeah. So the podcast is called You Are Not Broken. That's on Amazon, Spotify, like the 7 major platforms. I'm most active on Instagram. So Kelly Casperson MD. And then the website's kellycaspersonmd.com. Starting a group coaching program in July so you can get access that on the website. And it's really because there's not enough sex coaches. There's not enough educators. There's not enough people out there. And it's not trying to replace therapy. It's certainly not trying to replace medical advice, but it's trying to be like a scientifically based, medically accurate source of information for people when they say, you know what, things aren't going well. What can I do to navigate through this? So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
The book is on Amazon, ebook, hardcover, paperback. I'm actually reading the audio in August, so it's going to be end of the year for the audio.
Awesome. Yes. I love Audible too. So, um,
I don't listen. I don't think I've ever listened to a book. I'm all podcast. But again, you got to make the stuff so how people like to consume. Like, see, some people are holding out for the audiobook. So interestingly, when you do a book, they're like, okay, we'll find somebody that you like to read your book, and I'm like, I'm reading my book, and they're like, no, 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 it takes a professional, and I'm like, well, I have a podcast, and it actually does. My podcast does really well, and they're like, oh, okay, okay, you can read your own book, but I'm like, dude, my listeners would be so bummed if it wasn't my voice. Like the book's really written in my voice, so
yeah.
I'm really excited that I get to read it.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming onto the show. We really I'll follow you and, all of your progress and all of your social media. So thanks so much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website, www.drchrislewmdphd.com for more support. I'll see you next week.